Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the recent development letter that came out for Planetside 2, penned by none other than former community member and now developer Wrel, titled Honing the New Player Experience. This came out on August 14th, and this is being recorded 2 days later. Let's see what he has to say. Over the past few months, he's been focused heavily on performance and stability post DX11 update on PC. Yeah, and gearing up for our big, now released New Soldier update on PS4. Yeah, that came out, I think, just a few days ago. With those initiatives complete, we figured now would be a good time to talk about the next leg. Toward the end of summer, serious commitment towards bettering new player experience. Hmm. We still have loads of new players coming to the game each and every day, and longtime players know how brutal this game can be on a fresh recruit. To that end, we've been working towards a more satisfying first experience in hopes that these new players are excited to come back and stick around long enough to eventually become salty veterans like the rest of us. Okay, so first thoughts here are that um, having browsed the headlines in this letter, I can tell that there's really nothing here for existing players. Everything here is at, to the point, all about new players. And what that tells me is that PlanetSide 2 still has the same problem that it had 7 years ago, which is that as cool and big and deep as a game as it is, it can't hang on to anybody. It does a good job of getting people in the door because it's unique, frankly, one of a kind. It's the only game where you can play a reasonable fidelity, modern shooter game with combined arms, tanks and planes and infantry, territorial control, three faction with 1,000 players at a time. There's nothing else that can do that. And it's free to play, so the barrier to entry is low. It's on Steam, which is another big feather in its cap. So it brings in a lot of people, but no one sticks around. And it's because, unlike most modern competitive shooting titles, when you hop in, you're in the same server as all the best players. So recently we had a few big updates that were all about giving longtime players reasons to stick around. So there was the um, Nanite Systems Ops release, which added the fourth faction that veterans have been clamoring for a long time, which means you can play as a robot who only has access to the uh, faction generic equipment, and um, essentially you're a mercenary for whatever faction is the lowest population. They added DirectX 11, which has been a long time coming and uh, really helped quiet a lot of the performance complaints that have always plagued this game. I mean, honestly, you put a few hundred players on the game, a few hundred players on the screen at a time, it's pretty hard for any system to handle that. And DX11, it's almost kind of tolerable for most people. Before that, not so much. They also put in the ASP system, which is a prestige leveling system where once you hit max level, you can reset your level in order to uh, gain one-time perks for characters, which mainly focus on expanding your loadout flexibility. So that was the old player stuff. Now we have the new player stuff. Okay, so let's continue on here. More mentors. Earlier this summer, we released a new player channel alongside an expansion of the mentor system. The system allows dedicated, helpful players to answer questions, provide guidance. In future, we'll be flagging trusted community members to speak in this channel without requiring a mentor rating. And we're considering reducing the requirements to speak in this channel overall. So they're going to dub certain helpful folks to guide new players. I think that empowering players to help players certainly makes a lot of sense in a game like Planetside. There's just a little too much going on for the game to guide you in the right direction, I think. really, whenever someone's starting this game and wants advice on how do you get the best experience and the most out of it, the thing that I hear and say and hear everyone else saying is you have to find a, an outfit. You got to find a group of people who will mentor you because first off, the cooperative component of the game is what keeps it held together. Without that kind of team-based component, if you just play solo, the game itself runs dry eventually. But if you play with other people, it both opens up a lot of avenues of gameplay and, of course, gives you that crucial social component that all games like Planetside thrive on. So, modernizing the death camera. Soon you'll be seeing a revision of the death screen come to the public test server and eventually live. This is a modern style death camera that offers a brief look at your killer before panning back to your corpse. We've heard, okay, this is interesting, compelling reasoning both for and against features like this in the past, and ultimately we feel that there are pronounced benefits for all players when it comes to learning base layouts and easing the frustration of quick or unexpected deaths. On top of that, the new camera feels more in line with the pacing we see from modern-day Planetside 2. So Death Camera is pretty standard in competitive titles in 2019. Planetside's never done it, and I'm not sure if that was for tactical reasons or not, but there are certainly a lot of members of this community who have latched onto this tactical disadvantage that this death camera change will bring. Essentially, the idea is if you've managed to achieve a kill stealthily, you should not be punished for that by having your position given up by a death camera. I could see the use in this to some extent, but and there are a lot of situations where you will die without knowing exactly what killed you. You see a player pop up in a gun, but that doesn't tell you a lot about how exactly he got you. Even experienced players will die out of nowhere from time to time. I think I'm inclined to say that this is a good change. Um, I'm not sure that Planetside is a serious tactical game rewarding stealthy play is as important as helping everybody better understand the game. Of course, all these priorities compete, but I think in this case, information is better than rewarding tactical play. Better loading screens. Okay, so this is just giving loading screens to help out newbies. That's fine, I guess. Um, I guess they're talking about splitting these from newbie to veteran players. So if you've played for a while, you'll just get arts, the art screens that we're currently getting, rather than these newbie screens. It's fine, I guess. No opinions there, really. Tutorial modes. We're currently working on modular tutorials where new players can dive into the specifics of different classes and elements of gameplay, like capturing bases. While we feel like the community will continue to be the best resource for new player guidance, no shit. We want to have structures in place that allow players to take a step back from the shark tank and learn at their own pace. These modules intend to replace the introductory tutorial currently available for new players on PC. So why are they using the word module here? This somehow seems significant to me. It's a peculiar choice for a word and implies that this module is something that can be used in a number of ways or places somehow. At first, when I was reading this, I was thinking, oh, they're going to create some kind of a mission system where, based on the current, surroundings of the player, they'll say, oh, go capture this base as a tutorial and guide them to an actual base where they can capture things. But then it went in a direction of saying take a few steps back from the shark tank, which kind of points to me that this is more in line with what we currently have for a tutorial, where you're in a segregated part of the world that is entirely under your control, where you can kind of just go through the steps and emotions yourself. This it's hard for me to have an opinion about this because the tutorial has been changed a bunch of times in this game, and I have never seen a situation where a new player, has come out of that tutorial saying that really helped them know what they're doing. Time will tell on that one. Sanctuary. In the July livestream, we showed off an early development version of a fresh new Sanctuary zone for the first time. This feature was met with some confusion, as the greater vision for why it is even seeing development wasn't made clear to the community. While it isn't time to reveal our long-term goals for this zone, I have a few guesses there. I can offer some context for its initial implementation. Sanctuary will be the first real social hub in Planetside 2. When we say social hub, we're talking about a place where players of all sides can interact outside the war effort and access features that don't belong in a combat zone. Like what, Wrel? What features don't belong in a combat zone? You talking about Planetside chess? Scrabble? Arm wrestling? What's he talking about? For initial implementation, we'll be targeting the release of time-limited vendors of exotic and rare gameplay rewards, lore elements, and all faction voice and text chat. Alright, so the last thing there is brain dead obvious. Time-limited vendors of exotic and rare gameplay rewards. Time-limited vendors of rare and exotic gameplay rewards. So they currently have seasonal content that rewards stuff that's rare or time-limited. Exotic and rare. The only thing in the game that I can think of that where that would have any relevance is with the implant system. Not all implants are easy to get. So maybe they'll be selling these for a cost. I don't know. This is without knowing exactly what these vendors might sell, it's hard to speculate about the relevance to the game. Anyway, lore elements I think is always a good thing for Planetside. Uh, there's enough about this world from a lore perspective that can be hooked into that it only stands to gain, I think. It's very spare as it is, but it's pretty solid. Ideally, our tutorial modules would follow the initial release of the zone. Having a social hub in place also gives us a better holding area for players waiting in queue. Better than Coltier VR, that's for sure. Let us build out some of the lore elements we've been working toward in the background over the past year, and creates a necessary foundation for long-term gameplay elements we're looking to introduce next year and beyond. Okay, so for lore elements, just to come back to that, we're talking about in-game text, maybe some voice narration, like a Planetside Sanctuary movie theater showing documentaries about the beginning of Araxis. What are we talking about? Maybe artifacts, Araxian artifacts, Vanu artifacts. Maybe one of the big lore things they can come up with is why on earth the factions would all share a sanctuary. Because based on everything we know about the factions, they have every reason not to be friendly to each other. Yeah. So long-term goals, long-term gameplay elements. My big intuition with sanctuaries has got to do with Planetside Arena. I don't know why, but I have this feeling that the sanctuaries are somehow going to be used to get players to play the broader Planetside universe, and the only thing that exists outside of this right now is Planetside Arena. I mean, it exists. That's a very loose term for this game that will exist at some point, right? It's hard for me to imagine what else that could be. It doesn't seem like they're interested in making new modes for Planetside 2. Gosh, it really feels to me like it's all going to be a Planetside Arena tie-in somehow. But I hope I'm wrong about that, because I really don't like that idea. Okay, what else? The mandate system. The last thing I wanted to talk about is probably the biggest system we're working on currently. We're tentatively calling it the mandate system. Mandates are time-limited challenges with concrete objectives and rewards given upon completion. For the first implementation, we're looking to create a system that can generate daily, weekly, and seasonal challenges like directives but more robust and forgiving, as well as create and trigger mandates via script. You'll be using mandates not only as daily motivator, but also to incentivize participation when a context switch happens in-game. For example, when an aerial anomaly event fires off and you now have a time-limited goal of destroying enemy aircraft, delivering anomaly data, or supporting allied aircraft. If you don't do it, you don't get the reward. The mandate system will help make make rewards feel more punchy and immediately obvious. It gives players a clear goal to complete, and it allows us to be more generous with rewards while maintaining tighter control over our currency economies. Interesting. Like much of what we're working towards now, this is a system that will support the long-term development of the game. Beyond the first implementation, we'll be looking to create communal mandates where multiple players contribute to the completion of the same goal. For example, an entire faction could be working towards a seasonal mandate and be trying to complete it before the other factions do. Gosh, that idea sounds good in theory. Hard to say how it'll be in practice. Or an outfit could have its own mandate that elevates the entire outfit as a whole upon completion. This isn't all we're currently working on. Osher is still in development. Ha! Fucking Osher. NSO weapons and vehicles are on the way, of course. Bug fixing, balancing adjustments, they're all the same shit we're used to. But I've mentioned above is our main focus heading into fall. The reality of game development entertains features may be changed, blah blah. Yeah, of course, we know things change. Worthy of time and attention, propel the game forward for years to come. Wrel, lead designer, Planetside 2. Okay. So what do we think about mandates? I think the key phrase in here that I really like, let me see if I can locate it again. Um, the mandate system will help rewards feel more punchy and immediately obvious, give players a clear goal to complete, and allows us to be more generous with rewards. I think this is like the key phrase here. One thing about Planetside 2 that makes it hard to engage players who maybe aren't the biggest hardcore dudes in the world is that the motivations to progress are well, they're not right in your face, right? You log in, you create a character, you get to learn a little bit, you get jumped into a fight, and you muddle around in the inventory upgrade screen, but you don't know what to upgrade or why, and it's unclear how the best way to progress, and you maybe get an implant or two from alerts, but the game is a grind for sure. Those kinds of systems where you could give time-limited or event-based rewards are pretty common in most modern live services games. They drive a lot of excitement and participation. They create news. They give content creators like me something to talk about. Um, so, yeah, I wonder what they'll be rewarding. If it's just things like certs and ISO, that's not that exciting, I guess. If they start rewarding, I don't know, everything else they could reward would eat into the other economies. I'll have to think about that one. The last thing in this highlight is while maintaining a tighter control over our currency economies. When implants came out, it was clear that they were concerned with this because they created a secondary currency in order to handle it. Um, Too many players have hundreds of thousands of certs just lying around on characters, and anything you can get with those certs is trivial for those characters. So you have to find ways for characters to dump those certs and think about the pool of certs whenever you bring stuff like this in. Anyway, I'm just navel gazing at this point, but I think this was a good overall letter. When I first read it, I gotta say I was a little bit disappointed because I felt like there wasn't anything for me in here. But Planetside is a MMO sandbox PvP shooter. So in a way, if you consider other players to be content, then this is pretty content packed. Um, we'll just have to see what comes. Thanks, y'all, for having a listen. Catch you next time.